Hi guys, Tim here. In this video I'm going to talk you through some very quick checks that you should do on your car before you head back out post lockdown. So at the moment a lot of us are only using one car, we're only going very short distances. After lockdown obviously we'll be travelling much further, so I'm just going to show you a couple of things on my cars. So we'll start with this one. This is Vauxhall Calibra, which some of you may remember, some of you probably won't. First thing I'm going to do, even before I get inside the car, is look at probably the most important thing on the car. This is, if you're going to save money anywhere, don't save it here, and it's down here. It's the tyres. This is the only contact point between you and the ground, and it doesn't matter what size tyre you've got on your car. Roughly the contact area between you, 1.5 tons of metal, and the ground is the palm of your hand. 4 of those on the ground, that's pretty much it. So when you're travelling down the motorway at 70 miles an hour, that's all that is keeping you going straight or turning you or stopping you. So what you want to do, first thing is inspect the tyre, have a look around the outside of the tyre. You don't want to be finding any cracks, you don't want to find any bulges or anything like that on the outside of the tyre either. You want this to be a good quality surface for the ground. Now the next thing to look at is tread. As you can see, the tread on these is pretty good. The minimum requirement for tread in the UK is 1.6 millimeters. Now I'll show you using this device here, but I'm going to show you something that is a lot cheaper than one of these. I mean, these are only like £2, but I will show you something much cheaper than this that you can use. In fact, it will cost you 20p and you've already got one at home. But I'll show you with this first. What you want to do is you want to insert this into that part of the tyre, push it down, and then it will show you the reading. And as you can see, you can get that to focus for me, plenty of tread left on those. And you want to do that on all 4 tyres. Have a good look. If you can have a look across the whole profile of the tyre, you don't want to be finding any flat spots on the inside of the tyre, on the outside of the tyre, or in the middle. Anything like that shows that the tyre has not been inflated properly, or that the tracking's out, which is scrubbing off the tread. Now if you don't have one of these depth guides, what you can use is something that costs you only 20p, and it's 20p a piece. The outside rim of a 20p piece is actually just over 1.6 millimeters. So you shouldn't be able to read anything on the outside of the tyre. So I'm just going to slot this in. As you can see, across all of the tread, there's plenty of tread left all the way across there. So always keep a 20p piece with you. You should be checking your tyres every month or so, but it's a good practice that when you go to the petrol station to fill up the car, have a look at the tyres and just check them. Make sure they look as they should. No bulges or anything on the outside of the tyre. You don't want to find any nails in the tyre or any screws or anything like that. Also look for how much the tyre bulges at the bottom. Now, inflation. This is probably the second most important thing. It's really important that you inflate your tyres to the right amount. You don't want to inflate them too much, because if you do, they can balloon and they can actually create that kind of shape at the bottom, and therefore only the centre section of the tyre is touching. Also, if you underinflate them, it puts additional pressure on the tyre wall, so they will actually do that on a cross profile, and that puts a lot of pressure on the outside of the tyres. You can find the right inflation usually inside the vehicle, but also have a look inside your user manual as well. You want to be looking for this number here on the outside of the tyre. Mine's R16, which means the wheels are 16 inches. Have a look inside your book and it will tell you what the tyre pressure is for the size wheels that you've got on. I'll just show you as well on the Golf. The Golf has got much bigger wheels. It's a far newer car, but again, if we just look, you can see this is R18. Now, as a standard rule of thumb, it's around 30 to 32 psi that usually runs, but don't just take my word for that. Do have a look in your book and make sure. It's also worth bearing in mind of how many people you have in the vehicle. If you've usually only got you or one other in the vehicle, chances are that tyre pressure on the back of the vehicle will actually be a bit lower because there isn't so much load there. Whereas if you've got a family and you've usually got, say, 4 or 5 or a full car, the tyre pressure will be higher because you've got more load over the rear axle. Next thing I'm going to do before I check and start the car is just go in, and I'm going to turn the ignition. I'm just going to turn the ignition on to 0.2 just to see if the car hasn't died. Now, this being an older car, it's got quite a few warning lights on there. The ones that you want to be looking for, if I just turn this off and turn it back on, you want to be looking for things like this, like ABS, airbag, traction control. This is the battery light, also the alternator light, oil pressure as well, engine management and handbrake. Now, I will do a few more checks. I would usually do a few more checks before starting the car, but I've used this car recently, so once I start, you would want all of your warning lights to go out. Now, I've still got one over here, which is a coolant light. I know the sensor on this car is a little bit dodgy, so I'm not worried about that, that's fine. And that's just handbrake, so as soon as I release handbrake, it goes out. Now, let's knock that off. What I would recommend before you start the car is actually go under the bonnet. Now, very few of us actually do go under the bonnets of our cars, especially modern cars. I'm just going to put this down while I open the bonnet. Now, it's not unusual that when you open the bonnet on a modern car that a lot of it is covered in plastic and you can't see much. This is sort of a modern-ish, but also becoming quite a retro car now, so you can still see quite a few of the things on there. So this is the main engine block, as you can see, quite a big engine in this car. This is where you would put your washer fluid. Now, this tucks all the way inside, so a good check is just have a look in there. You can see that's nice and full. It doesn't need to be full, and usually there will be a warning light inside the car if that's not full, but it's a good idea to keep that topped up. Check your coolant. You will see there are two levels. There's a minimum and a maximum, and if you can't quite see where it is, just rock the car and you'll start seeing the liquid inside just flow about inside. You want it to be in between those. Do that when the car is cool. Never ever open that when the car is hot. This will go to probably around 100 degrees under normal driving, and it will pressurize. Now, at the moment the car is cool, but if I start to undo this, you'll see that that doesn't make a noise at all. If I was to do that when it's hot, that system is pressurized, it could shoot out, and I've had a friend who actually did that. Nothing happened. He looked over it at that point, it all bubbled over, and he scalded his face. It was a very nasty facial injury. At the back you've got this is the brake fluid. You can see the brake symbol on the top. Again, you shouldn't need to check that, but it's worth keeping an eye on. The main thing that you want to look at is oil level. Now, oil level on cars, use the dipstick. Usually they're always painted yellow, usually always down the front. What you want to do is pull it out. You want to clean the dipstick, plunge it back in. So I'll do this, I'll just pop the phone down. I'd recommend actually warming the car up before you do this, so you get the oil all around the engine. I'll show you one of my other vehicles that have been stored for a little while what I mean about this, but I know this car was run yesterday, so it's going to be okay. So clean the dipstick, so you've actually got absolutely nothing on there. Plunge that back in all the way down, pull it back out, and then have a look on the dipstick where you've got oil to. Now you can see that this one's nice and topped up. We've got oil all the way up to that top level there. Now, between the bottom level there and the top level there, if you do need to top up the oil, it shouldn't be anywhere below that level. If you need to top up between those two, it's 1 litre of oil. So if it's halfway between and you do want to top it up, that's half a litre of oil you need to put on there. Don't put any more. If you see that there's actually oil above the dipstick, the maximum level, don't worry about that, but do have the oil changed as soon as you can. But you never want to overfill the engine. It can cause a lot of pressure to build up in the oil system. Oil is possibly the most important thing for the engine. The engine gets very hot. It's the only lubrication that keeps everything inside the car working as it should. Now that we've done that, I'll show you what I mean about one of my older vehicles. It's also a Calibra. This one's been in storage for a little while now. I've got the bonnet up on this one already. So I've done all the same checks as my other vehicle. One thing I have done, I have got the keys, that's good. This one's been in storage for a long time, so there's a good chance that the car battery will actually go flat while in storage. The systems in the car will continue to draw a very small amount of power while the car's stored. While it's doing that, it can discharge the battery. So either try and use your vehicles as often as you can, or buy a battery conditioner. These are about £30 to £50. You can get them from Halfords. Just plug it in, and all you do is just clip it on there, and it will just keep a very small amount of charge trickling into the battery to keep it in good condition. Now, when I start this car, it will make a lot of noise. I'm going to explain why once I've got the car running. So again, I'll just show you. I have all the warning lights come on. All have gone off. And start. Now, you can hear that this car makes a very different noise. The noise you can hear across the top of the engine are the tappets. Now, when a car sits for a long time, the oil will drain to the bottom of the car. It will go into the sump. Nothing to worry about, it does that normally, but it does mean that the top of the engine will become quite dry. So what you can hear there is literally the mechanical parts touching on one another, and there isn't oil lubricating them. The best way to get around this is when the car is running, try and take it out for a medium to long run, get the car nice and warm, get the oil flowing around the engine, and that noise should subside. Now, with all the cars, it's not unusual for, I'll just knock that off because I'm in the garage. It's not unusual for older cars to have a noisy tappet. Tappets will go noisy, it's nothing to worry about. But when you do go back out to your car after it's been it hasn't been run for quite a long time, as many vehicles haven't been, it's a good idea to do all of these checks. Do them when you're not about to go out. Give yourself time to do the full checks on the vehicle before you are planning to go out. You don't just want to go out to the car and expect it just to work. There are thousands of moving parts on every single vehicle out there, and they do need to be moving. They are moving vehicles. There are lots of systems that all work together, and if they've been sat for a long time, things can just seize up. It's a bit like, think about yourself. If you were to sit down for a few months and not go anywhere, chances are you're also going to be a bit creaky, and the same applies to your car. If you're going to do one thing from this video, please check your tyres. Check the tyre pressures. If you don't have a pump at home and the tyre pressures are low, go down to your local supermarket. They have got electric digital pumps. They can just literally put in the pressure you need them to go to, and it will go straight to that. You can buy home electric pumps that plug into cigarette lighters. Again, very cheap, £5–10, always worth having with you. And when you're down at the supermarket or you are filling up all the tyre pressures, don't forget to check the spare wheel as well. And if you don't have a spare wheel, I know a lot of new cars don't, to save weight, just check that all the parts are in the boot. So if you do have a puncture when you go out, you can at least try and sort it out yourself. Apart from that, checking the oil, checking the battery, check your tyres. Can't stress that enough. Check your tyres. The cars, really, modern cars are built very well. You shouldn't have any major problems. If you do hear a noise that doesn't sound right or something doesn't feel right, check it. Take it to a garage, have them check it. Final thing I will say are brakes. You don't need to do any major checks for brakes. The brakes are down here behind the wheel. If the car's been sat for a long time, you may find to pull away, you might find that it's a bit hesitant to pull away that first time, or you might hear a slight dragging noise. All that is corrosion on the brake discs, and it's where the pads and the discs have actually just come together and they're just a bit reluctant to let go. So you can see here, it hasn't been used that much, but you can see that there is the disc. If I hadn't been using this car, especially if I washed the car and then haven't moved it, the discs will rust. That's perfectly normal, it's bare metal. And the only reason you don't see rusty discs on most cars is because they are out and about and they are being used. But if you wash the car, you don't move it, these can rust, and that can just bind the discs and the pads together. Just try rocking the car very gently on the clutch, just bring it up and it should free itself off. If you hear like a catchy noise, it's just wearing off the rust on the discs. Just touch the brakes gently, and essentially when you go out that first time, just drive sensibly, drive gently, ease the car back into it, don't go out thrashing it straight away, and just take it nice and gentle. And just remember, this is a moving vehicle, there are thousands of moving parts on there. Parts do break, but on the whole, cars are built very well and they are designed to keep working for as much as they possibly can. So of course, do stay safe out there. I hope you're all keeping well, and when lockdown's over, I hope you found this video useful. If you've got any questions or you want to run through anything, please do let me know in the comments below, or of course head over to my own YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/OurTim. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.